What's going on, guys? Welcome back, and today I wanted to make a video sharing my thoughts on one of, I think, the worst criticisms I've ever seen of the MCU portrayal of Peter Parker, played by Tom Holland, or Spider-Man, in the MCU. Now, this isn't related at all to the news that Spider-Man will be leaving the MCU. I'm frustrated about that. I'm not going to make a video on it, but, you know, with that news, that is frustrating to me. But this isn't related to that. I just wanted to make this video. So this channel's name is James Universe, and this isn't going to be a video about him. So if I say anything slightly mean towards him, I apologize. But he used to be one of my favorite channels on YouTube, and he's had kind of a great fall since the beginning, and this, I think, is one of the worst videos he's ever made. So this was made on July 14th. And he's ranking all of the Spider-Man movies. So this is when he gets to the part where he talks about Spider-Man Homecoming. And he has one of the, I guess not an unpopular opinion, but the popular opinion that some people have of not liking the Tom Holland Spider-Man Homecoming movie. Now, before I get into this is not anything against anyone's opinions, but there's a fine line between having an opinion about something and then some people are good at this where they say that, oh, this is my opinion, and then they kind of slowly, sneakily transition into basically just stating a fact that they think is true, that is completely invalid, at least to me. And this is one of the worst attempts I think I've ever seen to criticize Tom Holland's Spider-Man. That's probably what this video will be called, breaking down the worst criticism I've ever seen of Tom Holland's Peter Parker Spider-Man. There are some people who do really good jobs on video essays, and one of them was High Top Films, a YouTube channel. A lot of you probably know him more than you would know this guy, James. And in his Spider-Man Far From Home video, he doesn't love Homecoming, and he didn't really like Far From Home at all. That is okay. He does a good job explaining, for the most part, in his video why he doesn't like. I don't agree with him, but I understand why he wouldn't have loved that film. And this is where the subjective nature of, I guess, just the stories come into play. And it's that when you grow up, a lot of people, I understand, this guy James and High Top Films, those channels, they've grown up with the Tobey Maguire movies. And those were their stories, and they got to grow up and mature with Tobey Maguire throughout those movies. Me, I didn't grow up, I grew up watching those movies, but by the time I'm older now, they're all out already, and I haven't experienced them as they went along. So this guy here, James, he really loves the first two Sam Raimi films like everyone else does. And I don't hold them as high regard as other people. I understand why people love them. I don't personally, but they are childhood favorites, and they're very fun to me. And I really love the MCU portrayal of Spider-Man. I think it's very fun, and this is where the subjective nature comes in, where if you grow up with those films, you're obviously not going to connect as much with this new portrayal of Spider-Man, because you are already at this point in your life where you can't really experience the story of Peter Parker's life the same way. Me, I'm at that point in my life where I can mature and grow up with this character played by Tom Holland, and if they pull him out of the MCU, I'm going to be really pissed off if they end up pulling him out of the MCU for good, because then you're basically completely ending a story where it could have continued off of a point where you set up a continuous story that I could have kept enjoying and growing up and watching these characters with. And that's why I love these Spider-Man movies, is they're fun and they're funny, but they also tell good stories about maturity. And at this point in my life, that's what I need to see, these stories of good overcoming evil, but also having a more underlying, relatable message and being fun at the same time. And I think that's what the MCU is great at, especially with these new MCU Spider-Man movies. But anyway, let's get into what I think is completely wrong and completely horrible about his criticism.
I am not going to talk about Civil War or Avengers Infinity War or Avengers Endgame, despite that Peter makes appearances in those films. I will say this, Tom Holland as Spider-Man in those films are among my favorites, because I think
Tom Holland's Spider-Man, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be mean or take a little dig at him here, but he just said Tom Holland's Spider-Man in those films are one of my favorites. That's not really how grammar works. I'm not trying to be mean to him, but that's not That's not grammar.
Russell Brothers do a better job at handling Tom Holland as Spider-Man than John Watts of the new Spider-Man trilogy. That's just my opinion.
See, that's the first example where he says, this is just my opinion, and then kind of goes off on a tangent about why he doesn't like these movies. And some people use that as a really weird defense mechanism against criticism, is they just say, that's my opinion. And then they nail a completely false criticism into the ground that is completely invalid and has no validity to it at all. Yes, that's what invalid means. I don't know why I said that. But anyway, let's continue.
And I would rather watch Tom Holland's Peter in those films than his own solo films. You want to know why? Because even though he's a teenager, he's better off as a supporting character because he's not grown up yet. He's not fully matured to be in his own films, in my opinion. I'm not saying that his solo films are bad.
So, I'm not going to replay that, but if you want to go back and re-listen to what he said there, feel free. So what he just said is, and it's perfectly fine, and this is where I get into my personal opinion myself, is I actually think there's a little bit of an inconsistency between the MCU Spider-Man in the Avengers movies and in his own Spider-Man movies, because he just kind of acts slightly different in each movie to me, which is kind of one problem I have with the MCU Spider-Man out of the very few I have with him. But that's getting off topic. What he just said is, I like watching him more in the Avengers movies. That's fine. You can enjoy watching him more in those movies, because those movies, I guess, are more mature and adult, if you consider it that. And, you're allowed to have unpopular opinions. You're allowed to have your own opinion, and I have a really unpopular opinion of not loving Endgame. I think it's an extremely flawed movie, and a lot of its flaws take me out of the experience. I understand they don't with everyone, but they do personally for me, which is great if you can ignore the flaws in that movie, but, just for how great of a movie it was made out to be, it was extremely flawed. But anyway, that's getting off topic. That's my unpopular opinion. And it's fine to have an unpopular opinion. This isn't me just ragging on him because he doesn't like the MCU Spider-Man, and I do. That's not the point. What the point is he's saying that the character is not mature enough to be in his own movies yet. What? That is the dumbest criticism. I'm not saying this guy's dumb. I'm not saying James is dumb. But that is stupid as heck. That's a complete misunderstanding of the character of MCU Spider-Man, or just the character of Spider-Man in general. Every story about Spider-Man, for the most part, is about him maturing and growing, and you going along on that experience. And I understand that you can't have that same experience with this version of Spider-Man because you already had that with Tobey Maguire. But saying that this Spider-Man, he's not saying he has no growth, which is the problem I had with High Top Films video that he made, where he says he has no growth, which he does. If you can't relate to that, that's fine. But saying that he's not mature enough, let's just make up a proposition here. What if Tobey Maguire Spider-Man films weren't just standalone movies, and they were also atongside bigger movies with bigger Avengers characters? Let's say, I'm not saying necessarily Tony Stark is in that universe, but let's say, if Tobey Maguire was in a universe with a big universe, was a part of a big MCU universe, as well as his own personal, little stories. Would you say that version of Spider-Man played by Tobey Maguire has no growth or isn't mature enough? No, because he matures over the course of the story. And I understand you can't relate the same way to Tom Holland that you can to Tobey Maguire, but to say that he's not mature enough makes no sense. If you had Tobey Maguire in an Avengers universe as well as his own, would you say over the course of his own movies he's not mature enough? No, because that's the point of the character of Spider-Man. For this guy who loves Tobey Maguire, if he just had plain Spider-Man movies as well as being in Avengers movies, I'm stating the same point. Would you say that he has no character growth or is not mature enough? No, because he's still growing over all the movies. With Spider-Man and the MCU, it's the same thing. I understand you can't relate the same way, but to say he's not mature enough, that's completely the point of the Spider-Man character, is to watch him mature, and he is maturing over these movies. And it's maybe it's not happening as quickly as you want, and that's one of my problems with the Tobey Maguire movies, is it feels like some of the character arcs and just the maturity of the characters is rushed. In these movies, it's going very slow for this version of Peter Parker, for Tom Holland. And that's what it's like in real life. It takes a lot of time to grow and mature. It doesn't happen in a 2-hour movie, you know? But, like, for, like, a universe like the MCU to be able to have character growth for that character in big Avengers movies that have, like, 30 other characters as well as his own 2 movies that he's had so far, and he's been in 5 movies, he's growing slowly, but he is growing. And if they take him out of the MCU, that's annoying for me, because then I'm losing a story that I could have potentially grown up with and learned lessons from. That's kind of the end of my point. That's the end of my point. Like, he has a ton of other dumb little criticisms about Spider-Man Homecoming as a movie, which are completely invalid as well, but this is just a point that I wanted to make about every criticism I see of the MCU Spider-Man. All of them are like, all of the criticisms I see are about, oh, why does he have a Stark Tech suit? None of them are about, what does the Stark Tech suit mean to the story? It has an importance in the story. It signifies Peter's growth. Tony takes it away. If you're nothing without the suit, then you shouldn't have it. All of it is growth for the character, but it happens slowly, because they're trying to make it as realistic as they can for this version of Peter Parker. And, you know, I'm probably killing you guys. I'm kind of killing myself, but, you know, this is just, like, not even... It's just one of the worst criticisms I've ever seen of MCU Spider-Man. It's not even about MCU Spider-Man. It's just about Spider-Man as a character. Like, you saying that you're a big Spider-Man fan, where I'm not saying that, like, I'm not doubting this guy's... I'm not doubting James. I keep saying this. I'm not doubting James' commitment to the character Spider-Man and his love for the character Spider-Man. And I understand maybe he just worded his point badly, but, like... For once, it's someone trying to criticize the story and the plot and the importance of the growth of the character, and it's a complete misunderstanding of, like, every story of Spider-Man. Like, the whole point is to watch him mature, you know? So, sorry if this video was a little all over the place. It kind of was. But I just really wanted to make this video to just talk about this, because it's just so stupid to me that there are people like this out there criticizing the MCU Spider-Man in such an idiotic way. But anyway, please let me know all your thoughts in the comments below, and as always, I hope you guys have a great day. Take care.